Genesis 29. Last we left our friend Jacob. He met with God, or God met him at this little place called Lutz, or Lutz, or Luz. I always like Lutz because it sounds like a klutz. That's where Jacob met God, or God met Jacob. And quite an experience, quite an encounter. Whether or not Jacob was fully in that place of worship or not, God met him anyway. So chapter 29, verse 1. So Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. Now, the people of the east doesn't necessarily mean that they're east to west. The people of the east mean that they're people different than them. And generally, the people of the east in the book of Genesis generally means not so good people. When Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, they went eastward. When the Tower of Babel was created, it was done east. When Abram moved his sons out of the land, he went eastward. It seems like everything in Genesis, when people go east, it's always not so good results take place. There's just something about in the book of Genesis, east is bad. And here, the author's giving us just a little foretaste of it's probably not going to go as well as Jacob thinks it's going to go. There's going to be some bright moments, but then there's also going to be this not so good moment. I suppose this one verse then could be taken as a principle, that is, when you have a great encounter with God, just beware that there's going to be something on the other side of you're going to encounter people of the east in your life. You're going to encounter just things that, have you had this mountaintop experience, as it were? And not that Bethel is a mountaintop experience, they weren't on the mountain literally. But that feeling, it's just a euphoric feeling with the Lord where it's like, I don't think it could be any better than this. And then maybe 2 hours later, 10 minutes later, or a day goes by, a week goes by, and you're just like, boom, right down, kind of back where you thought you were, Wouldn't it be great if we just always had those mountaintop experiences and just stayed there? That'd be awesome. Well, someday that's going to happen, but we have to wait until he comes back for that to happen. In the meantime, just know that there's always going to be people of the east around you. That shouldn't sway you from doing God's work, his word. Now, keep in mind one little segment, and we'll look at this as we move forward, but the word went in the New King James, small little word, it's a little verb, so cute. Jacob went on his journey. Literally, it says, in the Hebrew, it says, lifted up his feet. Now, I know lifted up his feet and the idea of going is a metaphor, but just keep that in mind as we go through the text. Lifted up his feet. He lifted up his feet and went on his journey. I'll give you one little tickler now. When you meet with God, guess what he wants you to do? Lift up your feet. When you have a great experience with God, guess what you need to do? Start walking. Having a great encounter with God doesn't mean we go in a cave somewhere and we become a monk and have this wonderful kind of discipline with just being God, with a great vertical relationship with God. Having a great relationship with God is great, but what does he command us to do in that great relationship? Lift up your feet. Start walking. There's no accident that Galatians chapter 5 twice says, if you walk in the Spirit, live like it. If you walk in the Spirit, then imitate the Spirit. If indeed the Spirit of God is in you. Walk. This word walk is such a beautiful metaphor in the Old and New Testament. Lift up your feet. Y'all probably have a relationship with God, or you're growing in your relationship with God. But, sometimes we got to pick up our feet and look around us a little bit and see what's around for where our walk needs to go, as it were, people that we need to see and be in relationship. In fact, speaking of the seeing, verse 2 says, and he lifted up his eyes, literally. He looked, and he saw a well in the field, and behold, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it, for out of that well they watered their flocks. But a large stone was on the well's mouth. So in verse 1, we see that Jacob lifted up his feet, moved along his journey. Now from chapter 28, when it says in verse 5 that Isaac sent Jacob away, and 29:1, Jacob getting really to the land of Haran, 2.5, maybe even 3 weeks have gone by. That's quite the journey, going from Beersheba up to Haran. He lifted up his feet, and he just started trudging 1 foot at a time. A couple weeks later, he finally gets to Haran, the people of the east. He then lifted up his eyes and saw. We're going to take the metaphor a little bit further before we look historically at what's happening. Just remember this. Lift up your feet and start walking. Lift up your eyes and start looking. There's a world around you that needs Jesus. There's a world around you. There's a Christian world around us. See with God's eyes needs. See with God's eyes those who you need to go to pray, to encourage. Lift up your eyes and see what the Lord sees. Lift up your eyes, see what Jesus sees. What needs can we fulfill? What areas that people have need in that we can come to the rescue? Jacob lifted his feet and went on his journey to the people of the east. He lifted up his eyes and saw in this field a bunch of sheep. And they weren't watered yet for some reason. They were just laying there by the well. I'm sure they were really good, well-behaved sheep because they were just laying by the well waiting for the big stone to be removed so they could water the sheep. Verse 3, interesting. It's a little parenthetical statement as if we don't know. And it's really good because none of us are really farmers. It's nice that they put verse 3 in here for us. Now, all the flocks would be gathered there by the well. And they would roll the stone away from the well's mouth, water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place on the well's mouth. That's nice, a little parenthetical statement for us non-farmers. Why in the world are the sheep laying by the well with a big stone over it? Well, he kind of tells us why. There's flocks that they're going to be watered once a day, and they go to this place, and there's a big well stone over the well to make sure that either animals don't get in there and corrupt the water, or that people don't steal the water for their particular town or city. And it's a big rock. It is a big stone. And usually it takes anywhere between 4 and 6 people to actually move the stone off of the well for people to then get their gallon buckets of water and start watering the sheep. You could possibly do it with 3 men, but generally 4 to 6 men. Probably, I could probably do it with maybe 1 other man. I'm just saying. Thank you. So the flocks are going to be gathered together once a day, and the shepherds that were around there, they would all bring the sheep together, because who wants to move the rock back and forth, right? Wait till all the sheep are there from all the town. They come together, the shepherds move the stone out of the way, and then they all water the sheep together. It's a wonderful little shepherd community that takes place when you all water it. And it's kind of like water cooler talk, right? At that point, hey, how's your day going? Great, awesome. How'd the Chargers do? Yeah, not so good. So that's just the time. They talk, they fellowship, they even maybe have a meal by the well of water there as they're drinking themselves, water that is. And so they're all waiting for the right time when all the shepherds and all the people come in to water the sheep. Verse 4, Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where are you from?" So he's on his way to Haran, but there must be other towns and other things sort of locally. He really has no idea where he is, but he's moving in the right direction. And Jacob says, "My brothers, where are you from?" And they said, "Well, we're from Haran." How about that? How about that coincidence? Of all the people that could be at this well in this unknown place, he just happens to find people that are from the city in which he's going to. Remember, he's never been up here. He's still just, GPS. He has no way of knowing exactly where it is. He's just moving along the direction. Sure enough, he finds people from the city that he's going to. And then he said to them, "Do you, by any chance," I've had this happen many times, by the way. "By any chance, if you're from Haran, do you know Laban?" Have you ever had that happen for you? "Where are you from?" "San Diego." "Oh, do you know Mr. Jones?" "No. I don't know Mr. Jones. Like I know every person in San Diego." Or in San Diego, it said, "Well, where'd you come from before you came to, San Diego?" "Oh, Nashville." "Oh, I have relatives in Nashville." "Do you know the Johnsons?" "No, I don't know the Johnsons." "Well, what part of Nashville are you from?" "Mount Juliet." "Oh, Mount Juliet. Do you know?" "No, I don't." Have you ever done that? Maybe you're guilty of that sometimes. It's like, "Oh, yeah, you're from Claremont. Oh, do you know?" "No, I don't." Claremont just isn't 2 houses. There's more than 2 or 3 are gathered. Funny how that works. But Jacob, he's like, oh, you're from Haran. Do you know Laban? Their response? Yeah. Really? Really? You're from the city that I'm going to, and you know the man that I'm going to see. He said to them, do you know Laban, the son of Nahor? Yeah, of course we know him. And then he said to them, Shalom? Is he well? Is he at peace? How's he doing? I know him. It doesn't mean I know him. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I mean, what a coincidence. The city, the individual, and now they say, Shalom. He's well. He's at peace. How do you know that? You got to be pretty close personal friends, I would say, if you can say, oh, he's doing well. Because usually it's like, oh, yeah, you're from Nashville, Tennessee. Do you know Mr. Jones? Yeah, I kind of know Mr. Jones. Well, how's he doing? Dude, I haven't been back for 9 years. I have no idea how he's doing. Here they know him. To the place where it's like, yeah, he's at peace. He's a peaceful man. Oh, we're going to find Laban, not a peaceful guy. It's so funny. Like, I wonder how well they knew him, or I wonder just what a deceiver Laban was to think he's such a peaceful guy. Because he's not. He's a deceiver. He's worse than Jacob. Yeah, Jacob's going to get it, which is sort of like good, bad, right? I mean, poor Jacob, but yeah, he deserved it, you know? But Laban's the bad guy in the story. But he deserved it, didn't he? Doesn't your heart just kind of jump a little bit when it's like Laban just gets it? Yes, God has a way of recompense. I love it. But poor Jacob. That really wasn't fair. Do you really know Laban? Yeah. Shalom? Peace? Well, is he doing good? Yeah, he's doing great. Wow. Then he said, look, forget verse 6. Oh, this is a great one. Is he well? And yes, he is well. And look, his daughter Rachel is coming with sheep to water at this place. Nice. Mom told me to go up north, find a wife suitable like Laban's daughters would be just ideal. So go. He's trudging 2.5, 3 weeks. He knows he's getting close to Haran, but he's meeting the people of the east. He knows he's getting close. And then finds this well. He's like, I'm going to the well. I'm going to get water. This is going to be good. He finally gets to this well of water. It's not the right time for shepherds to be gathered yet. The sheep are lying there, but it's not time to water the sheep yet. Verse 7 says, then he said, look, it's still high day. It's not time for the cattle, a.k.a. the herd of sheep, to be gathered together. Why don't you then just water the sheep, go and feed them, and just get out of the way so that when Rachel comes, it's just me and her. Just get them out of the way. I know it's high day, but come on, let's move the stone. Chop, get them watered, get out of here, and just let me have a little romantic little interlude with Rachel alone. Get out of the way. Jacob's still a deceiver, isn't he? Still a schemer. So it's still high day. It's still not the right time. It's way too early to water the sheep. But yet, the herd's there. 3 flocks of them. And the shepherds are there, and it's the wrong time for them to be there, and yet they're there. And then Rachel coming no less, it's the wrong time for her to be there because it's not time to water the sheep yet. All these people are coming together to get their sheep watered, and it's not the right time. Well, God has the right time in mind for all this to take place. He is what we call sovereign. He just knows to bring people at the right place at the right time to do his work. Can we call that, as some wise man has called that, divine appointments? Could we call those divine appointments? Could we call the reality that he's in the middle, literally, of nowhere and sees a well of water with a big stone on it with sheep, and it's not the right time, and he goes there, and there's these men there gathering, and they happen to know Laban. They happen to even know him really well to know there's a guy, and there just happens to be the daughter coming in. Like, really? That all, quote, just happened? Or is that God's divine appointment that takes place? There are so many divine appointments that take place in your life And if we don't keep walking, lifting up our feet and lifting up our eyes, we will miss those opportunities to share the love of Jesus, to ask questions. I love our evangelism training because it's not about understanding the 12 laws of Romans or the 4 spiritual laws or this and that. It's about asking the right questions to incite conversation so that gospel kicks in your relationship. I think we all know that God sent his son to die for our sins. I think we understand that, and that he rose again on the 3rd day to give us new life. But when we say that to an unbeliever, I guarantee you, for years of experience, I guarantee you, they will not get saved based on saying those words. It's going to take time and relationship unless somebody has cultivated that relationship already and they were ready to receive. What happens next is something like this. Well, I just don't believe you're God. Well, I think God is mean. Well, how can you really be sure that that really took place? Well, how can you really know? Well, how can you believe your Bible is right? Well, have you had those questions? See, that's part of evangelism. So it's so important to know those things, for when those divine appointments come, you're ready to answer those questions. It's no accident that God is working all these things together in one place for Jacob to have a relationship with Laban and Rachel moving forward, as his plan is now really set in motion. Divine appointments come in so many different ways, shapes, sizes. Even sheep are a divine appointment by God. Is everything well with Laban? Sure, everything's at peace. Oh, by the way, Rachel's even coming. Go figure that. We just happen to be at this well, and we happen to know Laban. We happen to know that he's well, and it happened to be that his daughter's coming in. Jacob's great, the master schemer. How about you just lift that stone out, get out of the way, because I want time with Rachel. Took a while for him to try to, work this out. Verse 8, we can see in verses 7 and 8 that there's conversation that goes on. Now, Middle Eastern conversation is a little slower than our conversation. Conversation is like, take your time, converse, and hours go by. Look, it's still high day. I know it's not time for you to water your sheep yet, but go ahead and water the sheep. Feed them. It'll be okay. Just go ahead and do that. And of course, the people say, oh, we can't do that until the flocks are gathered together. There's more people coming. Let's just wait. It's not time. We got to make sure that we all do it together. That's what we do. We're a community. We gather together and we water sheep together. Well, that sounds kind of cool, doesn't it? We all gather together and water sheep together for the betterment of the community. We don't want to leave anybody out. That's actually what Paul was dealing with in 1 Corinthians when communion was done in a wrong way, because all the people were eating all the food and doing communion before all the workers came back in, and they weren't able to partake of communion. I mean, the principles are so amazing, and these are the unsaved people that get it. Jacob's like, hurry up and get them out of the way. Let's move on. And the unsaved people are the ones that have morals. And they say, that's not how we do it. We're a community of people that gather together. And we're going to do that. And we're going to wait for everyone together as we gather together. Like rats. Jacob's like, I don't want to talk with you guys around. That's embarrassing, Trying to have an intimate conversation with potentially the one I want to marry. I don't need you guys around. Nonetheless, what are you going to do? We cannot move these flocks until we're all gathered together, verse 8. And by the way, they need to roll the stone from the well's mouth. Then the water will be there for the sheep. So, we got to move this heavy stone. We got for everyone to be there. So we have 6 guys or so. Because right now, if there's 3 flocks of sheep, that means there's probably 3 guys, maybe a few more. And they're just not going to lift the well. They're not going to lift the rock up. They're going to wait for more people to show up to move this rock. So, verse 9, as they're conversing back and forth. Now, it's said only once in our Bibles, but you can imagine Middle Eastern culture, they're bantering back and forth. Well, do that. No. Well, yeah. No, we're not going to do that. But would you seriously do it? No, I'm not going to do it. But really, come on, do it. Get out of the way. No, we're not going to do it. We're going to wait for everyone. So you see the conversation lasting forever. Now, verse 9, while he was still speaking, with them, Rachel arrives. She's at a distance, but by the time they're bantering back and forth, she is now there, for she was a shepherdess. Now, I suppose this is just technical, but this is the only time that shepherdess is used in the Bible. Isn't that crazy? A shepherdess. She's an outdoors woman. And Jacob absolutely falls in love with this outdoors woman. She doesn't want, the rest of the story? You know, Leah, Rachel, Leah, the sisters. Leah's an indoors woman. He doesn't want an indoors woman. He wants an outdoors woman, which is sort of hilarious because Esau's the outdoors man, and Jacob is the indoors man, right? Esau's the one that goes out and goes hunting, and he's all the big game guy. Yeah, that's Rachel in the story. It's kind of sort of ironic how God pairs people together. That's not a principle that opposites always attract, by the way. That's just an insight here. And it came to pass when Jacob saw, literally lifted his eyes, he saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother. You get it? It's his mother's brother twice. You get the idea? It's this Rebekah's brother. That Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth himself and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. You get mother's brother 3 times. You get the idea that it's Rebekah's brother? It's very important for the author to say, this is exactly how Rebekah has planned this. All part of God's design, though, clearly, as all the shepherds are there at the right time, the well's there, even Rachel's coming. It's just perfect time. Even though it's the wrong time of day, it's God's perfect time for all this to take place. Jacob must be super strong. Generally, 4 to 6 men lifting up that stone, and Jacob sees what he hopes to be his future bride, and he just manhandles this stone and rolls it and flips it over. This guy he became Samson for a moment and just supernaturally rolled that stone off. Jacob then in verse 11. Oh, by the way, I should mention, it's sort of what Moses does in Exodus chapter 2. Go to Exodus chapter 2 real quick. It's such a quick part of the narrative in Exodus. We sort of forget that it sounds so familiar. There must be a principle in here for us. Exodus 2 verse 15. When Pharaoh heard of this matter, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh, because you know all the stuff that's going on with Moses being inside, and he finally, does something horrific to the Egyptians, and now he has to flee for his life. Moses gets word of this, when Pharaoh gets word of this, Moses flees from the face of Pharaoh and dwells in the land of Midian. And as he's going towards Midian, which is many, many miles from Egypt, he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. But then the shepherds came and drove all the ladies away. They wanted to water themselves, and they was sort of an opposite paradigm. Here you have these shepherds that welcome Rachel in and welcome all the people into their community to water the sheep and all that. And now, in this case, the shepherds of Midian were not good people. They came, they drove all the sheep and all the ladies away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. Nicely done, Moses. You wonder if he knows the story of Jacob standing up for Rachel. I don't know, but it's Moses writes Genesis, so you wonder if there's some parallel there. What do you think the principle is? I wonder if there's a principle there about coming to the rescue of those who need help. I wonder if there's anything there for us about, lifting up your eyes and seeing the need and doing something about it. It's probably something there. Whether Jacob was doing this completely out of sinlessness or just flesh, he just lifted that stone, that thing that had to be hundreds of pounds, and he just rolls that stone off, and he starts watering Rachel's sheep. Jacob kissed Rachel. Well, he doesn't waste any time, does he? He's right in there kissing Rachel already, and he lifted up his voice. Wow, another lifted up. This time the translation gets it right. It says lifted up his voice. He spoke, in other words, but instead of just using the word spoke, the Hebrew vernacular is he lifted up his voice. So now we have Jacob lifting up his feet, lifting up his eyes, and lifting up his voice, and he wept. Mr. Superman, Samson-like figure now weeps like a baby. I don't know if that is winsome. I don't know if that wins over a female or not when you're just a Herculean man for just a moment. Lift the stone right off. Obviously, she can see he just is a strong man, but then he lifts up his voice and wails like a baby. Not really sure. If you were Rachel in the story, men or women, just pretend you're Rachel for a moment. I mean, would that kind of personality do that for you? I'm so strong, and then, you big baby. My personality would be like, I'm staying away from you because you are like almost, whatever word you want to use there. I mean, it's like, wow, you are really strong and very aggressive, and now you're weeping like a child. It's like, not really sure I can handle that kind of personality for the rest of my life. So really not sure. And the idea of coming and kissing me right away, I'm not sure I'd like that either. But again, I'm not Rachel, and I don't live in the 4,500 years ago as this is taking place. So, certainly the kissing doesn't have to be this crazy romantic stuff. It can certainly be Middle Eastern kissing, and that is, that's what they do. And that's what they do. I'm telling you. Spending some weeks in Iraq, I mean, you're kissed to death. I mean, it is just like a kiss fest, but you have to make sure you kiss correctly. Because if they're coming into the right and you're coming to the left, it works really well. But if you're both going the same direction, you kind of almost hit the lips, So you got to be careful when you're coming in. Like, you got to make sure it's moi, Because if you both go the same direction, then it's moi on the lips. It's very embarrassing. Hypothetically, I'm saying. It's embarrassing. Have you ever done that, though, here at church when you go in for a hug and you're supposed to go to the side, but they go to the same side? And you're like right there, face to face. It does happen. I mean, you got to get it right. You just got to. So kissing, all that to say simply is that the kissing doesn't have to be crazy romantic kissing here. It can just be, that's the custom. There's so much affection that's going on. And of course, Jacob has a lot of affection going on, that's for sure. He lifts up his eyes and woo-hoo-hoo, Rachel. By the way, Rachel means eyes like a lamb. Lamb eyes. I don't know what you think about sheep. We always think sheep are stupid and dumb and everything, but they have pretty eyes. I mean, they do. They're just like, oh, that's so pretty. The eyes are so pretty. They're so adorable. You lamb eyes. You know what Rachel means? All honesty, I'm not making it up. You know what Rachel means? Wild cow. Yeah. That's a rough one, And I don't really have anything to say. I mean, Jacob wants to marry the one with the eyes that are so beautiful. We have no idea what she looks like other than she's a beautiful woman. That's totally relative, isn't it? So it's not anything about any stature or anything. It's about the eyes of Rachel were just so beautiful. It made the rest of her look so beautiful. And then there's Leah. Her eyes are just wild. She's a wild person. She has wild cow eyes. Has nothing to do with her physical stature. It has to do with she's just like not pretty. You look at someone's eyes, you go, no. And Rachel, for whatever reason, she had these Middle Eastern culture says if your eyes are sparkling and eyes are the most important thing in Middle Eastern cultures. I mean, no wonder the veil goes here. You see the eyes. Of course, you don't see we won't get into all that. Well, we did, but we'll stop. She is beautiful to Jacob. The first thing he sees is her eyes. So let's give him a little bit of credit. First thing he sees is her eyes. And she is just so beautiful. They just sparkle. They just say, something's different about you. How he could make a mistake of marrying Leah instead? Totally drunk. He's on the wedding night, and he is drunk as a skunk and has no idea the wife he's marrying. Wow. The very thing that attracted Jacob to Rachel totally despises him when he's drunk as a skunk. Note to self, don't get drunk. Jacob kissed Rachel, lifted his voice, and started weeping uncontrollably. Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's relative and that he was Rebekah's son. Her response, she ran and told her father, just like Rebekah. It's like it runs in the family. Hey, that's great. Remember the servant, Genesis 24? The servant comes in and says, I am Abraham's family and I'm here to find a bride. What does Rebekah do? Runs back to the household and tells Laban what's going on. Sure enough, Rachel, the same thing. She runs and tells her father. It came to pass when Laban heard the report about Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him, embraced him, and kissed him. There's a lot of kissing going on here. Everyone's excited to see Rachel and Jacob. And now Laban's coming out. Why is Laban so enthused to go out and see Jacob? Well, remember, the last time we met Laban was when the servant, Abraham's servant, came up with cattle and camels and jewelry and gold, and it was a dowry, in other words. And he just lavished Laban and his family with all these things. No wonder Laban has run into Jacob. Maybe there's more things. It worked well the first time. Tons of sheep, tons of jewelry, tons of gold and silver. I welcome Abraham's family anytime, any day. And there comes Laban running out and kisses him as if they're getting married. You know, it's like, I love you because of what you have and what you can offer me, not who you are. And he brought him to his house. Of course, it worked the last time. Read Genesis 24 again, and the amazing parallels of the servant who goes to find a bride for Isaac and brings her back down, and Jacob dealing with this issue. I mean, the parallels of 24 and 29 are pretty spectacular. So Laban is thinking, hey, it worked for me the first time. This is going to be great. I'm going to follow suit. I'm going to love on him and kiss him, do all the Middle Eastern culture thing, because I want mammon. You know, I want all the goods that you have to offer. Little does he know, Jacob has nothing. He has the birthright and the blessing, but he has nothing in his possession. There's no camels, there's no sheep, there's no jewelry, there's nothing. Rebekah said, get out of here before you die. And off he goes with nothing but sandals and some clothes. Birthright, blessing, I don't see any. So there Jacob is by himself. Laban kind of gets the feeling like, you're not going to help me out. So he embraced him, he kissed him, he brought him to his house, and he told Laban all the things that had taken place. And Laban said to him, surely you are bone of my flesh. And he stayed with him a month. A month. Now, first glance, you would say, Laban's, what a great guy. I mean, your family, stay with me. Okay, your family, stay with me, stay a couple days, take Rachel and go back down to the promised land. After all, Rebekah said, only take a couple of days. Well, it was 2 weeks to get up there at least. Stay a couple of days, bring the bride back down. Oh, he stayed a month. He stayed a month. Wasn't out of graciousness. After all, well, verse 15, the hinge. Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what should your wages be? So it sounds at first value that it's kind of good. Like, hey, you can't work for nothing. I should pay you something. Hey, wait a minute. Why am I working for you? Why am I working for... We're relatives. Why am I working for you? Laban is already starting that deceitful trail. Hey, by the way, I really didn't want you to work for me, but thank you for doing all that work for me. I really should pay you something. Oh, man. He shouldn't even be working for him in the first place. All this duping is going on. Laban, of course, has 2 daughters, and he wants to marry one, and the story goes on. It's so awesome. Laban wants Jacob to stay for a lifetime. He doesn't respect God and his word. He doesn't respect the fact that God told me I'm going to get a bride and come back down to the promised land. Laban says, why don't you stay a month? Help me out here. Provide for me. After all, when the servant came, there was all that provisions. I know that through you, God's going to provide for me. So I want you to hang around. Totally using Jacob. Jacob stays a month. I don't know why Jacob stays. We're not told why he stays. We're not told why Jacob didn't stand up for righteousness and move along. Nonetheless, he stays for a month. Could this be a principle? Don't wear out your welcome. Does that make sense? Don't wear out your welcome. That is, if you know God has a plan and a design, start lifting up your feet. Lift up your eyes. Lift up your voice. Have some conversation with the Lord and start doing something. Make preparations for what God has for you. It's such a dangerous thing to let the world or let the system or let the man or whatever you want to say, let the people around you make decisions for you. It's so easy when we're caught in this place of maybe we're just a little tentative, a little unsure, and all of a sudden we let others make decisions for us. Do you have a relationship with the Lord that's so tight that no matter what, I mean, I know there's wisdom in the counsel of godly people, but that's a very important phrase to remember. Godly people. You don't get wisdom by just a multitude of counselors. You get wisdom by a multitude of godly counsel, right? Everyone has an opinion, just ask them. Godly people should have a similar opinion. Listen. Don't be swayed by what the world says and what the world's way of thinking and the morality of what the world says. Stand up for what righteousness looks like. Don't be swayed by the world's opinions. And for some reason, Laban said, well, you're family. That means you should stay with us a long time. Listen, it's okay to go counterculture in your family if it means standing up for righteousness. It might be hard in some cultures to do that. Standing up for righteousness is so much more important than standing up for family values, or family cultural values, I should say, right? But our tradition is, yeah, but that kind of goes against what God's word says. Are you willing to stand up for what God's righteousness looks like over what maybe Laban's righteousness looks like? Well, since you're family, you can stay for a long time. Well, okay, I guess it sounds all right. Maybe it'll be okay. Wait a minute, that's not what God said. God said, get going. God said, find the bride, bring her back down, and live in the land that I'm giving you. Remember the promise in chapter 28? The place, the awesome place where he met God? He said, I'll be with you, I'll protect you, I'll bring you back and deliver you, and I'm never going to be unfaithful to you. Did he forget that he's supposed to go back into the land? Why a month? Jacob, I don't know what he was thinking, but he wanted something out of the deal. Instead of standing up for righteousness, he stood up for maybe personal gain. And Laban, of course, is just going to be a master deceiver in the whole deal. So Jacob, we see some faithfulness here for sure. He follows God in his ways. He goes up to Haran. He lifts up his feet and keeps going. It'd be easy to kind of drag your feet and say, I don't want to go there. I can't make it. I'm tired. I can't make this journey anymore. Well, lift up your feet. God will give you strength. He lifted up his eyes. He really saw the reality of what's going on. What if he was just downward and he just looked down the whole time, missed that divine appointment that was right here in front of him? Just think about just lifting up your eyes and just seeing, some of us are a little bit down because of things and experiences of this life. Guess what? Just lift up your eyes. It'll be okay. My wife used to say, chin up. Chin up. It'll be okay. Chin up. Because sometimes we get down, we kind of do this, like, The other phrase we use is eyebrows up. Because when eyebrows are down, usually means like, I'm either thinking real hard or I'm really angry about something, eyebrows down. They say, hey, eyebrows up. When the kids were young, it's so great. And Krista just thought of this. I don't know. She's super smart. But like the kids would always come to Krista and be like, Mom, Samuel's doing this or Benjamin's doing this. And the kind of cranky face, eyebrows down. And Krista would be like, eyebrows up. Well, she didn't do the finger thing like that. That was something I learned recently. Not in my house, right? But so she didn't do the finger thing, not in my house. But she definitely gave the look like, get your eyebrows up before you talk to me. You're like, he's doing it. Get your eyebrows up. It's kind of funny. Then it's like, okay, stop being angry. In other words, eyebrows up. It only takes a really good, mature, wise person to be able to get your eyebrows up and be mad, right? You did what? But kids don't know that. They're not experienced with eyebrow management, But we older saints kind of have especially ones that have teenage kids. You did what? And your eyebrows are wide open. You're not happy. We kind of got that down, But those little kids, but when they're angry, their eyebrows are right down. Whoa, So chin up, eyebrows up. See from God's perspective what's going on around you. Yes, things are bad, but you being depressed about it doesn't make it better. How about when things aren't going good? Get your eyes up and see what God has to see. See what God has to say about it. Lift up your voice and talk to him. Pick up your feet and start walking. Start walking by faith in a direction. Lift up your eyes and see what God sees. Depression isn't going to go away by keeping your eyes down. Depression many times goes away by just getting your eyes up and seeing the perspective, watching divine appointments come your way. Watching places, some people are ministered to when they get to minister. Some people are ministered to when they are ministered by someone, right? Both can take place. Many times when we're kind of in that funk and we lift up our eyes and there's a place to serve. Yeah, I feel so good. There's a bigger perspective that's out there when I could just help, maybe just doing something. Get your eyes up and see what God has in front of us. And then, who knows? the other side is true. When your eyes are up, someone can see you and they go, hey, are you okay? Is everything all right? No. I could use some prayer. Great. Let me pray for you. And you're so miserable. All you have to do is just keep your eyes up. See what's around you. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to go up to someone and ask for if they need some help, a helping hand, a helpful verse, a promise. Lift up your feet, lift up your eyes, lift up your voice. Lift up your voice. Now, maybe when you lift up your voice, you're not going to wail and weep like Jacob did, but maybe, just maybe, you just need to verbalize what's in your soul, and you might actually start weeping. You might actually say, I've pent up a lot of stuff inside. Maybe I just need to get it out. If you had to do that, just to get it out, just get it out. It'll be okay. Just get it out right now. If you're feeling angsty, if you're feeling depressed, just get it out. Lift up your voice, say what needs to be said, and God will fill that void. He does such a good job at it. So lift up your voice. If it takes some weeping in there, weep away. Maybe there's going to be rejoicing. Maybe there's going to be worship that takes place. Who knows what that looks like? But just, I don't know, is it okay to say pray? Certainly when Jacob lifted his voice, he wasn't necessarily praying, although he may have said, thank God for this beautiful woman in front of me. I don't know if that's prayer or worship necessarily. But there's an element here of lifting up your feet, lifting up your eyes, lifting up your voice that I think is very important for us. Wait and just watch God's divine appointments take place as you do his work and his will. And lastly, don't be bamboozled by the world. Don't be bamboozled by the way the world does things. God's instructions are clear. Don't ever walk away from those instructions, aka stay around for a month when you should have only stayed for a couple of days. No, just have discernment and wisdom walking through life when is the best time to move and to act and to react according to God's ways. So, Lord, I pray, Lord, that the book of Genesis thus far has been an encouragement, a tool to help us grow closer to you, and also look inward to see places, areas in our lives that need some repair, that need help, that really need your Spirit to give us wisdom and guidance, to comfort, conviction. And God, as we look at the life of Jacob already, and this is the early start of his life, we see a lot of foibles, we see a lot of misdirections, we see a lot of deceiving, but we also see your hand and your guidance. So, Lord, for those of us who have kids, give us encouragement, God, that even though some of our children may be wayward, maybe not at the place where we want them to be, your guiding hand is with them. And so, God, we lift up our voice and pray for our children right now, whatever age they are, young or old. Maybe some of us have grandchildren. We pray for our grandchildren right now, God, that you would instruct them, that our kids would follow you, would walk in your ways, would lift up their eyes to see you and to see the nasty world around them and see your holy work of righteousness going on. May they not only see, but may they respond, God. May our children, grandchildren respond to your work, to your ways, to your wisdom. May they not get caught in this world's system, in the world's thinking, but stand up for righteousness. And now for us, God, maybe we're at the place, maybe we're the Isaacs in the story. We're past that place where maybe our kids are already grown or we don't have children. And God, maybe we're just at that place where we're like Jacob in the story, where we just need to rely on you wholly and fully right here, right now. Maybe some of us have kind of planted our feet and we're not ready to move. No, I'm not talking about geographical move. We're just not ready to move, God. We're just kind of stuck in our ways right now. We're not really lifting our eyes to see anything because we're just kind of doing our thing. So God, give us by your Spirit the right time, the right way, to lift up our eyes, to see what's out there, to speak to you, to lift up our voice, and to move in your direction. Give us the wisdom from above that says no to the world and what the world has to offer, and move towards your holiness and your righteousness. Thank you for this life of Jacob here that we're reading. Thank you for his example. Thank you for your work in providing these divine appointments. God, give us divine appointments, even just when we leave here and go our way. Give us divine appointments every day to be ministered to and to minister to others. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
You've been listening to the chapter and verse teaching of pastor, author, and Bible teacher Wayne Kinde. We trust that these messages are enriching your life and assisting you in your walk with the Lord. You can help us further our efforts to make these messages available by donating at waynekinde.com/donate.